Okay, I think we're live. We're doing it. It's True Faith Any Questions, our first live on YouTube show. I am Charlotte Robson. This is my childhood bedroom, and I'm joined today by Mickey Carling and Alex Hurst. Alex, with the full name on his screen, very serious. Awesome. So this is a patron. Usually a patron podcast. We are going to answer your questions. You've put them to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon, and we're going to answer them as best we can with the brains that we've got. So without further ado, this one's a happy one to start with. Adam Beckett. This one came from Patreon. Easy one for you all. What's your favourite Newcastle United away day story? Best home fans, best stadium, best pubs, etc. Alex, I suspect yours is going to be a Leeds one because you're obsessed with it.
Yeah, well, we did a show this week on Patreon, True Faith Patreon, Charlotte, didn't we? About this, the fixtures coming up, and I'm gutted that it looks like away fans aren't going to be entering games by the time we have Leeds away. Of course, it's a Tuesday night because we always get hoid in the midweek for anything half decent. But yeah, my favourite away day is just when Rafa's Newcastle turned up at Leeds in 2016, their first sellout in like 150 years history. Newcastle come to town, the media are loving Gary Monk. It's all about Leeds, and Newcastle turn up in second gear. Dwight Gale enrages Ellen Road, and Leeds is a great city. The atmosphere was, to be fair to the Leeds fans, was absolutely sensational that day, even though we turned them over very comfortably 2-0. And Leeds just a great city, isn't it, Mickey?
Yeah, tremendous.
Mickey, what's your favourite away day?
I don't know. That's
the rules.
Like a specific, like one game or favourite away day as in place to go. I'll go with place to go. Like a bit of a flashback. I used to absolutely love Blackburn away back when I was like a teenager and a very young adult, because the pub was class before the game, and there always used to be, even in league games, there was like 5,500 Toon fans going. I went down with my dad and uncle and brother on one Boxing Day a few years ago, and it was brilliant. Singing Jingle Bells in the stand. We drew 2s each. Robert scored, I think. But I love Blackburn, and obviously like it's just close as well. Like it takes like 2 hours to get to Blackburn. Not like now where the closest game we've got is Villa and it's 6 hours on the bus. Like
Leeds now, but none of us can go, so that's good. Okay, mine's Everton. I had the best time at Everton, and I really like Liverpool. I really like the city, and I had the day off, and I got to wander around, and it was really nice. And I'm a big Beatles fan, so I went and looked at the Beatles statue and said hello. Okay, Liam.
Are we going to answer the best home fans bit?
Best home fans? Yeah, that's part of it.
I don't think there's any good home fans, but I just want to like dispel a myth quickly on that point, and arguably the worst home fans I've seen in the Premier League is Liverpool. In a game where they beat us 3-1, we went ahead. Kluivert scored when he was about, I think maybe like genuinely like 8 yards offside. Kluivert scored, went mental. I was about 15 at the time actually, so that was a long time ago as well. And they comfortably beat us, like comfortable 3-1. It could have been 8-1. And the like famous Anfield atmosphere, which I was so buzzing to see as a teenager, was just like non-existent.
I had the same experience at Liverpool last season when we went ahead with a Williams goal, and then we lost, obviously. It was a midday kickoff, and it was just like silent. Like there was no atmosphere at all. I don't know, but Arsenal fans are terrible as well.
Always terrible Arsenal fans.
To be fair, a lot of these conversations you guys are having now is how away teams in the Championship talk about us. Like when you play bad teams, and Newcastle are a bad team, you don't really get up for it, do you?
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Liam NUFC, who is watching live. Hi, Liam. Thanks. Wants to know thoughts on us getting the Brazilian left back for 14 million. This is the rumored left interest in Brazilian left back Rogerio. I'm going with. I don't speak Portuguese. So also Liam says that best home fans are Crystal Palace. So that's okay.
That's probably fair. Yeah.
So actually, this is something that we had a couple of questions on. Rogerio, one came in from Twitter as well. Highly rated in Italy. Gaz said this on Twitter. Very highly rated in Italy by all accounts, and would appear to be an upgrade on no left back. Alex, what do you think?
It would be a great signing. Like Gaz says, the fact that he's a living, breathing footballer who plays left back is an improvement. I think it's a bit harsh on Paul Dummett to say no left back, and I appreciate he's played in a back three as a centre back. I think Dummett is a really good utility player, but he is he can't play left back. He played left back. He was Rafa's number one left back for a long time. It would be nice to buy a fullback who costs more than £5 million, which hello Emil Kraft. That hasn't gone great, has it? And yeah, the fact that he seems so highly rated in Italy, the fact that he seems to be something skillful on the ball and attacking player, exactly what we need, because Manquillo was doing a really good job on the right hand side of defence last year, got shifted out to the left and was terrible, and that's what happened when you play footballers in the wrong position. So that would be a massive signing if we could get hold of him.
He's also only 22, which give him a couple of years under Steve Bruce and he's just really gonna hopefully get his full potential. Mickey, what do you think?
Well, forgive me for being the pessimist, but Newcastle United are not going to spend £14 million on a left back. I can kind of dispel this story for you all now. That's not going to happen. I would also suggest that as a child, spending big money on a Brazilian footballer was the only thing that I really wanted from Newcastle United, and we've done it once already, and it went terribly. So I would, obviously it's a different kettle of fish because this guy clearly is actually a decent footballer. What I suspect the truth is that Rogerio's agent has tried to structure a move to someone that will actually pay £14 million, someone pay him a decent wage, and has used Newcastle United as the stepping stone to get him into the press and into people's inboxes. Well, that's me being pessimistic, though.
Yeah, well, it might be working. Not for us, of course, but
I think we'll sign him. I think we'll.
Yeah.
I think that we need a left back. They brought in Willems late last year, because it got to that stage where we needed a left back. I think there is a recognition there that we need a left back. I think we'll sign him.
Well, there you go.
We've needed a striker for 4 years, man, and we still don't have one.
We need a left back, so we're getting a left back.
We've needed a left back since Santon left.
There you go. So we'll have a striker in a couple of years then. That's how it works. Okay, another one from Patron. This one, right, teething issues, hands up, this is all on me. Most of this question will be on your screens, but then also here's the last bit. So I obviously will read it out. It cuts off. With talk of Sharon Lejeune leaving in this window, has yet to, obviously the window is open till October. Do you think we would be right to let them go in order to sign other players? And which first team players would you not mind seeing, and then next bit, leave in order to finance new signings? Mickey, what do you think? Which first team? I wouldn't pick, I'm going to jump in. I say Mickey and then it's me. I don't, after Cher's sort of performance last season, particularly that sort of after restart, I'm not crying to see him go. He's obviously aesthetically lifts the squad, but I don't think that it's not going to cut me up to see him go. Lejeune, I would be sad to leave, partly because of that aforementioned Everton situation and him equalising that day. But I think if it means signing younger, fresher talent, then I am kind of for it. I think you kind of have to be quite brutal. What do you think, Mickey?
I'll be really disappointed to see either of them leave. Lejeune's obviously, he's been very unlucky with injuries, but there's only so far that unlucky with injuries goes, and he's now definitely fallen in the bracket of injury prone, I would say. But he is a classy footballer that hasn't been able to show his best at Newcastle United because he hasn't had a good enough run in the team. He's really got it for me. Mentally, he's a very, very smart defender, and if we can get him playing, 25 to 30 games a season or possibly more, he would be a massive asset for this football club. And I don't want to see him leave, and I also don't think we would see value for money on him because of the history of his injuries since he came to Newcastle. I can't see why anyone would pay him anything like what we paid for him, and that would be a real shame. I possibly would say the same thing about Shaw as well. I would be disappointed to see him leave. He had a terrible season last year, obviously, but he also is a smart centre half, and he's far more capable on the ball, same as Lejeune is than anyone else we've got in the squad. And you take one of those two out, or take both of those two out, and you look at who we have left, and there's nobody in there that's capable of.
That's the point. Is to get new talent in. It's not get rid of them and that's it. That's the question.
Yeah, but it doesn't work like that in Newcastle, does it? It's not as simple as that. Where does the money go if it comes in? Does it secure Rob Holding on a loan deal, and then next summer we're back to square one with nothing in the bank and no centre halves that are tied to the club? It's we definitely can't let both of them go. And if we let one go and we invest the money in someone that's going to come through into the first team in 12 months' time, then great. But I don't think we should be doing that.
Alex, what do you think? And remember, this question is, would it be right to let them go in order to sign new players? Like Mickey's pessimism is so deep-rooted that he can't even imagine that would be a possibility. What do you think you can cast your mind to imagine that?
I can, and I think Lejeune is getting over 30 years old now. I think that Florian Lejeune is an excellent player, and I think Liam's made a comment there about him saying, you enjoyed having him here. I think that's spot on. I think Mickey, you're right. If he was to move on to go back to Spain or to move to France or something like that, and to get some good money for him, as long as it was reinvested into some players, like you say, Rob Holding on loan, unless it's with some sort of view to a permanent deal, because he's been at Arsenal, for quite a long time now and hasn't really managed to get into the first team. Is he ever going to be that kind of standard at this age in his career? I would be okay with that if there was an option to buy at the end of it. We have been linked with some of the centre-backs as well from Europe, and I think if you look at Lejeune and Shaw, I think they've played their best football at Newcastle. I'd love them to play that kind of football again. But if you think, Fernandes and Lascelles seem to be the preferred two, if we go back to playing a back four, which I really hope we do, it's only going to be 2 from 6, in that 2 from 5 if you include them as a left back. Like, that's not sustainable, really. It's the one part of the club that we've been well stocked. Funnily enough, at the end of last season, we're still having to play the likes of Kraft and players like that, and Danny Rose as a third centre back. That's only because we were playing so many with 3 centre backs, despite having 1 centre back. I think it didn't make any sense. So if we'll play with 4 centre backs for the majority of the games this season, I think one of them definitely needs moved on, because Bruce really rates Kieran Clark. And to be fair to Clark, he did play very, very well earlier this season before his own injury problems. It's crazy how we've got all these centre backs and then they're always injured. It's just peak Newcastle United.
You have to think about the manager in this question as well, which I didn't address before. And Lejeune and Cher are not Steve Bruce footballers, are they? Like, I don't want to get into it with the manager, but Rafa has a more cultured approach to football, a more continental approach to football, which includes, defenders that are comfortable in playing and carrying the ball, and that doesn't really fit into the Bruce tactic. Not saying which is better or which is worse, so we can come to that on another time or another question. But the likelihood is that one or both is going to go. Yeah.
David Waller, I can see you writing Newcastle takeover. We've got questions. We'll answer questions about Newcastle takeover. Somebody else thinks that it's still very much going through ... So that's exciting, isn't it? To get that exclusive on the podcast.
I love how Bastos's watching, maybe just thinking like maybe that move that's been rumored for the last 15 years could finally come off.
I mean, maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Well, I can't even with the takeover stuff. But there are questions about the takeover. We will get into that. Richard Smith is watching and says, on a percentage scale, how much better is our squad currently 3 years after getting promoted and over 100 million spent? Alex, on a percentage scale.
Yeah, percentage scale. Let's get my calculator out. It's a good question, isn't it? Because, I'm trying to think of our first team. And if you assume that, like, Bruce is going to go with, say, like, Yedlin, Dummett, Lascelles, Clark, Shelby, Hayden, Richie next season, Gale if he was fit. It's almost identical. The funny thing is, I think Martin Dubravka makes a big difference. I think he's a class act, and he only costs £5 million. So that increases the positivity of there he is. Yeah, Martin Dubravka. What was his picture on there?
I got it from Magazine. This is my makeup bag.
Oh, right.
I haven't made use of tonight. Sorry. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So and then you're looking. I mean, you're saying we've spent £100 million there, Richie. It's crazy that, because you think about Jacob Murphy, obviously St. Maximin and Almiron adds a lot. I think if I'm going to go like Dream World, Rafa's back in charge, but he's in charge of like Almiron, Gale, St. Maximin, plus the rest of them, and Dubravka. I think that team would be much better or certainly a bit better. But it's not that case. It's not that way, is it? So yeah, it's 100 million spent, but we have recouped some transfer fees as well, not loads. But the fact is, it's going to be like 2035, and we're still going to be playing like the majority of the championship winning team in 2017.
Mick Borum says we're minus 30% because they're all older.
Is that depreciation in action?
Yeah, like a car.
It's just an accountancy trick, man. That's all it is. That's like actually speaking right there. What a grim way to put it, by the way. When you think about the percentage improvement, you've got Dubravka, Almiron, Maximin. How do you put those percentages on? But other than that, there is literally none. And Mick's right. Like the rest of the lads have gotten older and depreciated. They have. It's true. Like,
to be fair, this Richie's 100 million spent includes a huge accounting error, which is 40 million on Joe Linton. Because I presume it was supposed to be 0.4 million, and someone sat on a calculator.
He's got to be in that minus 30%, I think.
A £39.6 million agent fee is what I heard on Joe Linton.
Oh, that's a lucky agent. That is a lucky agent. Okay, let's move on to another question from Patreon. This one's from John Paul Morrow. Assuming we actually get Callum Wilson or a similar striker, what would constitute a good goal tally? And what on earth do we do with Joe Linton? I mean, that last question is, I don't have the answer to that. Give him a Sega Mega Drive and tuck him away in a room for the season.
Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I went retro.
1994.
Yeah, I think he'd like it. Mickey, what's a good goal tally if we actually signed a striker or somebody decent?
I mean, you've got to be looking for 15 goals from your striker, don't you? Like, that's kind of the baseline of what's going to keep Newcastle in contention to stay in the league. We don't get a lot of goals from anywhere else on the pitch. That's a problem for us. And I don't know what can we expect, Doug. Callum Wilson's goal tally in previous Premier League seasons has never been that high as far as I can remember. So, what is he the man to do it? I don't know. What should I do with Joe Linton? He just needs to
what's Joe Linton's goal tally in the Premier League?
It's 2, isn't it?
Yeah. 2. If we can go higher than 2, John, I think that's my answer.
Yeah, but I mean, even 9 or 10 is not good enough, is it? It's just not good enough. And you can't compare our strikers with strikers from properly run football teams, because other teams have got like 2 people that will score canny few goals, whereas we will, regardless of what happens this summer, we will only have 1 at best striker that's going to score a decent tally of goals. I know Dodds is going to come in and say Dwight Gale, but he won't.
Well, Gale got 4 and 10 last season, so if we extrapolate that across the whole season, he's on about 16 goals. But more seriously, the last time we had someone score more than 10 league goals, I think, this season was Demba Ba. Or possibly, last strike. I think Wijnaldum got 11. But yeah,
one game against Norwich though. So
it's been an issue for the entire Ashley Rain having a proper striker who scores goals. There's a time when we had like Owen, Viduka, Martins, and Andy Carroll in the same squad, and they still didn't manage to score more than 10 goals. It's one of the biggest issues at the football club. Probably will continue to be so.
Yeah. And Liam has written that Dwight Gale's a championship striker. He looks like Aguero when he's in the championship. So Alex's heart just ripped in half there. All right, Adam Beckett is watching. Hi, Adam. He says, "Is keeping the good players fit more about rotating them correctly or how they train? We've got a decent 11, but no depth at all." I think it's going to be both, right? It's not an either-or situation, but we're not able to rotate because we don't have the squad depth to do that. And we're sort of looking over our shoulders so often that we don't have the sort of luxury of playing. People would play less often, I think. And then how they train, we talked about this a little bit on a Patreon podcast, Alex and I, this week, that we have a very injury prone squad, that we weren't as injury prone, in the previous seasons. And as we've discussed, we have the same squad we've had for the last 4 seasons. So I think there's something in the training or the conditioning or something not working, because we keep getting quite bad injuries. Alex, what do you think?
It's a good question. I don't know the precise answer, and I think it's like you say, it's a bit of both, but it's also probably to do with, for example, last season, Adam, we played without the ball consistently in almost every single game. We did not have the ball, so the players are having to put more in off the ball, more effort, more running, more twisting, more turning. You're just more likely to pick up injuries. You also got a team that was kind of constantly stuck in its own half. You had defenders constantly throwing themselves in the way of crosses, tackles, blocks, and I think that takes a toll as well. So I think it's the way the team is set up is probably such a big thing as well.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree. There's no coincidence that we didn't suffer the same level of injuries under Rafa Benitez and his whole coaching setup and the whole backroom staff. There's far more to it than just rotation and just training. It's something that becomes deep rooted in a well-run football club, which we are not, and we had it briefly under Rafa Benitez when the players were properly conditioned, they were properly trained. There was some rotation. There wasn't the I don't want to say backwards attitude, but old-fashioned attitude to football, which we've had from virtually every other manager. But coming back on you, Alex, a little bit, we spent the majority of the time when Rafa Benitez was managing Newcastle with less of the ball than the opposition and doing a lot of defending. It might not quite have been as last gasp and diving at the ball and stuff as it has been under Bruce, but it was there was a huge amount of effort expelled by the team under Rafa Benitez to play the style of football that he had, but the number of injuries wasn't anywhere near what we've seen under Bruce and what we saw before.
Yeah, I'm with Mickey there. I think something isn't working that did work under Rafa Benitez, and I know that we are trying not to hark back to those glory days, and a lot of people are like, "Let him go, get over it, he's gone." But there was so much positive there that you can then directly contrast with what's going on now that it is impossible not to. Mad Mag Mark is making a very good point. Jose Perez scored 12 goals for us in 2018-19.
12 league goals, did he?
I was thinking league goals as well, but I think it's probably all competitions, which might make sense.
And Rondon also scored 12 league goals, he says. Salomon Rondon.
Did he?
So that's what Mad Mag Mark says. So
almost like we should have just signed him.
No, don't. Oh,
no, come on, mate. We got Joe Linton instead. So
that's true.
Salomon who?
Let's go to another patron comment. Do any of you have any excitement or interest in this upcoming season? Give me some reasons I should care or be engaged in the club anymore under its current guise. Well, Brian, that's a very difficult task. Mickey's just shaking his head.
Yeah, don't come to me.
I'll be positive. All right. One, we know Mike Ashley wants to sell the club. We know he wants to sell it. That's really important. The best chance he has of selling it at a price comparable to that he'll accept is if the club are in the Premier League. So in previous seasons, it's kind of been like, what's the point of staying up? We don't even know if Ashley wants to sell. I know it's a bit of a terrible, reason to be excited for a new season that we might get sold, but at least we know that Ashley still wants this deal to happen. He would happily, if someone turned up with the money, want the deal to happen. I appreciate that. It's got nothing to do with it. And you know what? The last time there was such negativity in the pre-season was probably before 11-12, when everyone said we're going to get relegated. I'm not saying we're going to finish 5th, Brian, because we're not, quite clearly. But you just never know. If they sign Fraser, Wilson, Rodrigo, and maybe a couple of other players, not to mention Jeff Hendrick, of course, the big one, like I think that'll be a pretty decent transfer window. I mean, it's a big if signing all those players. But spending that kind of money on them. But I'd think that the squad was slightly better than last season. And you know what? I think the fact that 4 of our first 5 games this season are winnable, we might get off to a decent start for a change. So to me, it's over to Steve Bruce. He's got to attack these opening games of the season, because the running after those 5 games is so difficult. Hopefully we'll see some attacking football. We might even see a little bit of like get smashed one week, score a few the next. I'd take that over last season's dirge. But you know what? I'm looking forward to the new season starting.
You have to think about the effects of coronavirus, don't you? And the fact that we're kind of going to the game and there's not going to be any fans there. It's not the same. It's not that good to watch on the telly, like especially not watching us. I don't want to be too negative, though. You never know what's going to happen when Newcastle United.
You don't want to be too negative.
I don't want to be too negative. I'm going to follow up with a positive. Like, remember the season where we finished 5th on the Pardew? Like,
yeah, dude.
I would have given you 1,000,000 to 1 odds on us finishing in the top 6 that season under Pardew, and we did it. But we're only this far away from getting Champions League as well. A couple of key results at the end of the season got our way, like losing 4-0 away at Wigan, one of my worst ever away days. A couple of key results, and we're getting the Champions League, and you never really know what could have happened if we just made it that season. So you never know with Newcastle United.
We still wouldn't have signed any players, and we still would have been shit.
Yeah, it would have just been excruciating.
Who's been negative now, eh?
What about the past? Not the future.
I am interested. The question is, do I have any excitement or interest? I'm not sure that I'm excited just yet, but I'm interested, and I'm going to watch, and partly because, I've committed to this podcast now, and I should probably watch the games. But I'm engaged. I am. I think, Brian, I think when that games actually start, even though we're not there, even though there's probably no away games this season, even though X, Y, and Z, I think when the games start, there's something in all of us a little bit that kind of just switches back on. And that's the reason you should be engaged, because you don't actually have a choice. It'll just happen for you, like a little switch will get flicked. And maybe I think Alex is right. Alex's point is good. It is important that we stay up in terms of Mike Ashley selling, and he obviously does want to sell because he's trying to. So that's it. Maybe it's scraping the barrel to you, but I think it's okay. Okay, one from Adam who is watching. Do you think, this is a good question, do you think the disaster of the Joe Linton transfer is causing the club pause when it comes to serious investment again? I hadn't considered that, but maybe.
What was their excuse in 2012 and 13 and 14 and 15, 16, 17 and 18?
They were just looking for the right guy. The right guy.
I'm sure. Didn't Mike Ashley get picked up on the Sky cameras, like turning up to St James's with a van full of money because he was paying half his own money for Joe Linton? Maybe that's the problem. It's nothing to do with Joe Linton that we're not investing in the club being serious, though. It's just that the club have got no interest in investing in the team, or the owner has no interest in investing in the club. But just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen at Newcastle United. The Joe Linton transfer was an anomaly. And it would, if it had gone really well, it still would have been an anomaly. Yeah. It was a very strange one. I mean, I'm sure that dissertations will be written on it in the future about what the hell happened and how it all sort of just slipped in. But we'll go back to Patreon question. I think this is quite long, and I've separated it for the screen. Takeover questions, sorry. So people who are watching who are interested in takeover views and stuff.
Is the solution not to set up the owners' consortium exactly the same as City Football Group for Man City? I.e., proxy owner is one of MBS's 5 brothers or cousins. City Football Group is 77% owned by Abu Dhabi United Group, an investment vehicle owned by Sheikh Mansour, the brother of the ruler of the United Arab Emirates. This is a long one. If the Premier League object to this, there's surely grounds for a legal case as to why City can operate like it. Do we still think that the consortium are trying to work this out to get the takeover done? Alex, do you still think they are? Do you think that would be a viable option?
Well, yeah, it would definitely be a viable option. And I think there would be no issue with the takeover if there was a solitary head in charge of whatever company or vehicle was going to buy the club. My understanding is the reason that the takeover stalled is, and this kind of frustrates me a little bit on social media. You see, well, how are we different to Man City? The person that asked this question has hit the nail on the head why it's different to Man City, because there is a solitary owner of the company that owns Manchester City, and it's Sheikh Mansour. You had his name on there before. I think that was who it was. So the problem with the PIF bid, I understand from the Premier League, is that there isn't one man or woman, but most likely to be a man in Saudi Arabia who owns that company. So therefore, you are completely right with the question. You asked the question again, Charlotte. Sorry, I find it rude.
It's a great question, Alex. Thanks for asking. The person who asked the question is David Watson.
So, David, what you've just described there, I mean, yeah, it seems kind of far-fetched to me in terms of, us talking about how billionaires sort their money out. But essentially, for this takeover to go through, if they can create a company, put the money in, like you say, or if they can, do something like that, and there'll be one guy that majority owns and controls that company, no one above him, the company couldn't be dissolved by the Royal Court or anything like that, then yes, I think the takeover could go through. Do I think they're still trying to do it? Well, the fact that they haven't come out in terms of Amanda Staveley and her people and said that they are through with this or they're finished, I still would like to think that, yes, they are still trying to do something like this. I have no information on that, but I really think that they would just come out and tell us if it wasn't happening.
Still there?
I think I've lost you.
Oh, we're still there.
Yeah, still here.
Guys, sorry. I think Alex has got up and gone. So
yeah, he has. I was just offering a layman's perspective on the takeover, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And it was going to be similar to what Alex said, and everything is played out in the media so much up to this point that you have to assume that if it was all done and dusted, we would have heard that. But you just have to hope that maybe finally, Amanda Staveley and her counterparts, whatever you want to call the collective that we've got, have learned the lesson that Amanda Staveley hadn't seemed to have learned until now, that this shouldn't be played out in public and nothing should be said. And you hark back to the question and you think, when Man City got bought, nobody knew a thing, like nobody knew anything. And then like overnight, Man City got bought by one of the richest people in the world, and they bought Fabinho the next day. Like that's how it happened. That was how quick it was. And with this one, it's been the total opposite. So maybe they've learned that they just have to stay, absolutely quiet. Didn't say anything to anyone, no one at all, and then announce it if it's done. And if it's not, it's not. That's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on. And I pester Alex like every single day. And look at his face; he knows it is true every day about knowledge on a takeover. And there's now out there that nobody knows anything. So hopefully that's true.
Yeah, I think that silence is a good thing. I think that if it was over, or I would like to know if it was over totally or if it was just done. Like I'm not actually that asked about like hearing the ins and outs of it. Like here, Liam's questions come up. I'm gonna Oh,
sorry. Thanks. I didn't realise I could select questions. That's good.
Well, you keep your mouse to yourself. I'm in charge. Jack Nesbitt wants to know, hi Jack, thank you for watching. How much of a factor will no fans play a part in our home and away performances this season? Based on that, which teams would you expect to be impacted the most positively and negatively by having no crowds? We got a taster of this at the end of last season, obviously, because there were no crowds, and the sort of so-called home advantage was kind of gone because that wasn't a thing. There was no atmosphere. There's no sort of crowd getting behind Joe Linton as he sprints up the pitch. So I think in terms of the current squad, that there's, they've got a taster of it. It shouldn't be too much of a shock to the system. But I do think that we're a great fan base and we G up our players quite a lot. So I think it does have a negative effect. Oh my God, Luke Nicholson's just written, who's that looking through your window? That's so creepy. Don't do that. But yes, I think it will have a negative effect on. I think it probably less of a negative effect than if it was just all at once. But I think it does not help having no. But then, having said that, maybe a player like Joe Linton benefits from not having people being like, "You shit, get off the ball." Alex, what do you think?
Did you see him play at the end of last season with no fans? I mean, he scored, didn't he? He scored at St James's Park with no fans. I think it's a good point, Jack. I think we don't beat Chelsea at home 1-0 in the last minute without fans there. I think we'd been so poor all game. I know we had one shot, we hit the bar in the first half, but I think we suffer more than most. Opposition players and managers always talk about how intimidating St James's Park is, even if it's not, last season wasn't rocking. And I look at a game like Southampton at home last season when we, we're very poor again. Big Andy comes on, ruffles some feathers, and all of a sudden it's an electric atmosphere and we'll get 2 late goals. So I think we're one of the biggest culprits. Obviously, it doesn't help that our players aren't as good as other teams. And whoa, it's gone so dark behind you, Charlotte. That's crazy.
Yeah, it creeps through my window.
It's Joe Linton outside the window.
No, he's not welcome here. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, so I think we're one of the teams that suffers the most in terms of not having fans, and that's why it'll be positive. 1st of October, or I think is that Burnley game possibly, or the one after Burnley, where we'll get a certain percentage of fans back into the ground. I think that'll help see Bruce and the lads.
Yeah.
Some of the other teams around the league, both Arsenal and Everton will have there'll be no effect at all because their fans at home and away have no impact on their team. But there was no surprise to me that Man United did really well when the fans were gone, because their home fans are so critical and they're unwilling to accept that they're not the best team in the league, and they have been for ages. And I reckon they've I can't think of the word, but I think Man United fans have a real negative impact on their team when they're not winning, and they flourish without it. Like Solskjaer flourished without it. I know you can tie that Fernandes being brilliant as well, but they're one of the teams that I think will benefit massively from fans not being there. But Alex is right; we'll be the worst affected by our home fans not being there. Yeah,
I agree with that. All right, we move to Facebook questions. This one's from Magnus. I'm aware of the time, so if we aren't getting to your question, I'm going to have them all collated. I say this every time, but I actually do have them this time. So we'll try and do another and get through more of them. But anyway, why do you think the PIF rejected the opportunity of a tribunal? If they were serious, why not give the Premier League the required information? Well, I think Alex kind of touched on this before. It's the arbitration thing that the Premier League said that they offered PIF in terms of understanding who was going to run the club, who was going to be most important person. That's the name of the owner of a club. If they were serious, why not give the Premier League the required information? Well, I think they were serious, but I also think that they didn't really have that. I think you would reject arbitration, that kind of thing, if you couldn't. That's my gut feel on that.
My understanding, I agree with you, Charlotte, is that one, the Premier League knew they'd win that arbitration. You don't offer to go to arbitration unless you know you're going to win. And by the way, arbitration the Premier League put to the trust would be 3 independent judges who would come with a decision. The Premier League would respect that. again, my understanding of it is that the PIF kind of weren't saying that they could be controlled by the Saudi Royal Court. They got a letter of assurance or whatever it was to basically say from the highest authority in Saudi Arabia that we will not interfere with this company, will not interfere with this football club, and the Premier League's position was that's not good enough. So I think that arbitration thing, I agree with Charlotte. I think PIF are serious and were serious. I just think it was the way the company is administered and created just made it almost impossible to pass the test in its current form. And like a previous question asked, I really hope that they are doing whatever they have to do to make themselves, whether it's moving money, whether it's forming a new company or anything like that, to be able to get through the test.
Yeah. James Armstrong is watching. Hi, James. Has being forced away from St. James's Park due to COVID-19 changed your view of owning a season ticket? Are you more or less excited about eventually returning? Mickey?
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because I've just said that I've got no optimism at all for this season, but that's partly, in a big way, in fact, tied to the fact that we're kind of getting the match, because supporting Newcastle United has always had to be for us as much about the day as it is about the football, because football's always been shit, or mostly been shit. So going to the match is is a big part of it for me. So being away from Newcastle and not being able to go to the match is just maybe want to go back to the match more. Like, even though I know it's going to be terrible next season, or it's very likely it's going to be terrible next season, I'm desperate to get back in the ground. I'm desperate to see the people that sit around us. I'm desperate to sing again and bang the chair. I'm desperate to run down the stairs when we score. All of those class things about going to the match. I miss them so much. It's been 6 months. This is the longest that any of us have been. Any of us that go regularly to the match. This is the longest we will have ever been having not gone to a game. And it's
I never thought about that, but that's true. Since I've been going, I've not gone, and
by far, when you think it, normally finishes in May and starts in early August or mid August, and you tend to get to one of the friendlies or something, or over the course of summer. Sometimes you go to international games, or go to the Euros, anything like that. 6 months is 3 times as long as it normally is between games. It's a long time.
Yeah,
I'm gutted. We don't get to go to the match. I kind of wait to get back, and then 10 minutes into the first game, having sang a bit at the start, and then Newcastle go 1 down to a shite team. Then we'll remember that it can't be shite as well.
Yeah. This sucks. I'm really excited to go back. I love the ritual of the day, the pub, meeting everybody, doing our match day podcast, if that's what we're doing. People turning around and telling us to stop doing the match day podcast because it's annoying them. I really miss it. I really miss all of it. It gave me. It was it's kind of your structure, isn't it? During the season, week on week structure.
You can think of moments that only mean something. When Joe Linton scored against Sheffield United, if we'd been there as a fan base and he could have shared that moment with 52,000, it just would have been a magic moment, even though it was the third goal against a team with 10 men. That would have been a magic moment, and that could have really helped him. And I think this season, he will score in front of fans at St. James's Park. If he plays as much as he did last season, he will score. And it's just one of those things like everyone who's watching or listening to this knows what that feels like when a player scores. Like when Almiron scored against Palace, it was a 1-0 win against Crystal Palace, but it was just a brilliant moment. So that's what I'm looking forward to going back for.
Yeah, same. Oh, I feel nostalgic and sad now. Ewan wanted to know from Facebook, with Jeff Hendrick having signed and Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser reportedly being targeted, does this mean that Steve Bruce is exerting more influence over transfers than, say, Alan Pardew did? And if so, is this a good thing? Alex, you kind of touched on this on the podcast we did. It does seem like, even though these aren't big money signings or big signings that you can sort of write home about, it does seem like, I think we both agreed that Steve Bruce, this seems like Steve Bruce's vision kind of thing, and he's looking to strengthen in certain areas, and that might be a good thing. It's kind of a test for him in a way, because if these are the ones that he's had more say over, then then this is it. Like show us your vision and show us how you're going to strengthen the squad with these people, I guess. But yeah, maybe.
I'll keep it brief because I know we've got a lot of questions to get through. But yeah, it would be absolutely massive. I think Fraser not so much because he's a free transfer, even though I think he's a great signing. I think signing an English player from a recent Premier League team at 28 years old. Last time I can think of us doing something like that. Certainly outside of Rafa Benitez's summers, probably Kevin Nolan back in 2009. That's how much Mike Ashley and the people who run the club for him hate paying fees for English players over the age of 26. So get a bloke who's going to be 29 next year. And they probably recognise the mistake that they made with Rondon. They should have signed him permanently for £16 million. He would still be our best striker now. So if it happens, and it's a big if, it would be a huge bonus for Steve Bruce, and yeah, I agree with you. And it would be a total validation of Bruce thinking that he could influence the way that the club does business. Like I think he thought he could when he came in, but it has to happen.
The other two aren't so much that though. Like the two free transfer signings, and Ryan Fraser's an excellent footballer, but we wouldn't be going anywhere near him if we had to pay for him. Let's not get this wrong. I reckon it's a case of like you get one, Steve, pick one. And the rest of them will come from us. And they've highlighted two players that offer great value. Don't get me wrong. I think both Hendrick and Fraser are brilliant signings, but they're apart from the fact that they're like domestically based, that they're not breaking away from the mold of finding real value for money because they're both free. Like Steve Bruce is only going to have impact on one signing, which we haven't made yet. So. Come the end of the summer, ask this question again, and we could say he's got one, or we could say it's the same old, and the manager's had no say whatsoever.
Yeah, I suppose we'll have a better answer for that one in October. We'll come back to it in October. Here's another one. There are a couple coming in from YouTube, so I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you, Mickey. What's the point of Newcastle United? From Tim Wood. That one's on Facebook.
What's the point of Newcastle United? We're a vehicle to advertise a certain man's sports. Terrible clothing company, basically. That's a desperate question, which asks you for a desperate answer, doesn't it? But it's still the football club that we all love, and we all spend all of our time and all our money following for whatever reason everyone chooses. And one day it'll be good again, and even next season there will be good days. There's going to be good days where we'll win games, and there'll be away wins. There'll be a time when we get back in the stadium and we can cheer Joe Linton score, and finally that's the point. We're well accustomed to living for very, very brief moments of pure joy, and that's what it is for us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm not going to ask you that, Alex, because we've got more to get through. I'm sorry, but you can't have it. Paul Lyon wants to know. The lockdown has been a taster for fans who are thinking about jacking it in. Some will have found that they can live without it, and vice vests. I think he means versa. What impact do you think this will have on attendances? That's an interesting question, Alex.
I don't think we'll find out for a while, because I think the whole of this season will possibly be reduced attendance. Just to feed into Paul's question there, I think there's another question about what would the opening crowd
Adam
be.
Beckett.
For the first game. I think for the first game, if it was literally now and coming out of the pandemic, I think it would be full, because safely going back into a crowded place with 50,000 people and like going on the drink for a day and not having to worry about social distancing, I think the ground would be full. I agree with the sentiment and the point that Paul and Alan are both making, that at the time of talking without signing, an expensive left back or Callum Wilson or something like that, then you do very much get the feeling that people have become detached a little bit from the like Charlotte, like you said, you called it the routine. However, personally, I just want to get the Wetherspoons at 7 o'clock in the morning, have to order 3 breakfasts to get 3 pints, and then stumble home at 2 o'clock in the morning, having seen we win 2-0 against some nondescript team. That's my
maybe
heaven.
That's
as if you think you've ever done a 7 in the morning till 2 at night. However.
Okay, Greg on Facebook wanted to know, where is Joe Linton, and is anybody genuinely bothered if he doesn't come back?
Pictured in training yesterday, I think.
My dad keeps doing this. He's like, rubbish that he's ill. They're hiding him.
He has been ill, like. But he was in training. He was in training yesterday. He was on the Twitter feed of pictures of them in training, definitely, or maybe Instagram, one of the two.
Can I just say, if and it's a big if Joe Linton comes back and turns out to be a good player, it will be like they'll have to make a film about it. It'll be the comeback of all comebacks, and it's a real shame that he probably needed a good pre-season, and the fact that he's been having to quarantine, not ideal. You never know if we sign Callum Wilson and Joe Linton can be the player that I wanted him to be last season, coming in from the bench, trying to make an impact on games, trying to get a goal late on, it might really help him than the pressure of having to start a game.
Yeah,
I would go further than that with Joe Linton. I think what he's done is unprofessional. After the season that he had last season, he had to make sure he came back into this season all guns blazing, and I think to miss the key weeks of preseason is knee good from him. But like he had to hit the ground running. I'm really quite annoyed about it.
I think you should write him a letter, a strongly worded letter. What?
I mean, so weird. But I posted a Charlotte's back window.
No, you posted it on
that's where he is.
Stop it. On his windscreen, like Andy Carroll today.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure his English is great though, Mick, so he might need to get a Google Translate on that.
Charlotte said she spoke Portuguese before.
What I literally said was I don't speak any Portuguese.
I didn't hear don't, so
yeah. Good listening. Norman speaks a bit of that. We can get him involved. Garth on Facebook asked what our level of apathy was, and I do think we kind of answered that. So I just want to nod to you and say thanks for asking, but you kind of hear how we're sort of in the middle. But as soon as the games start, personally, I'm excited. David Graham wanted to know current apathy levels. There's a lot of apathy questions. There's a theme here. David G, I think this one came from Twitter. How many goals will Mitro bag this season? Obviously, he's back with Fulham. Alex, do you want to take a punt on that?
I don't care because he doesn't play for us. He wasn't great when he did play for us. Is he better than what we've currently got? Yes, but he doesn't play for us, and I just don't care.
Right, fair enough. That is very upbeat. Okay, Gaz, I think on Twitter wanted to speak about Rogerio, but we spoke about him at the top of the show. Big P on Twitter said, with Ryan Fraser seemingly coming in, who's your favourite all-time Scottish Newcastle player? For him, it's Duncan Ferguson.
God, I've got a lot of time for that. I love Big Dunk. Like, there was a clip doing around on Twitter just maybe yesterday or the day before when he basically grabbed Yap Stam by the scruff of the neck and forced him like head first into the ground as he clambered over them. And like nobody in world football did that to Yap Stam. Like Duncan Ferguson was an absolute animal, and I loved it when he played for Newcastle. It was a shame he wasn't very good for us, but I really liked him as a footballer. He's a kind of last of a dying breed, isn't he? Like, he went to prison for assault, and not to make light of that. It's obviously horrendous, but like he brought that kind of attitude and like proper hard, like he's a proper hard man. He brought that into his game, and it doesn't really exist anymore. It would work, would it? Like you kind of go around like elbowing people in the face, left, right, and centre anymore, like Duncan Ferguson got away with. But I really like him as well.
Able to do that in the first place. You say you can't do it anymore. But maybe...
Probably not. But you think back to the style of football that Shearer played. Shearer was into people every single game, and he made it very hard for them to defend him. It's just a different time, and it was effective then. I don't think if Duncan Ferguson was coming through as a footballer now, he'd still be going in and elbowing people in the face. It just worked. It was to win games.
To be fair, it works for Harry Kane.
Mental. Yeah. Was it Aguero?
Stephen Glass should get a shout here, by the way. I like Stephen Glass as a footballer.
Okay. Was it Aguero who used to bite people?
Suarez,
yeah. The bite.
See, that's no good, is it? Like, at least Duncan Ferguson had to, like, he would look people in the eye as he smashed them in the face, whereas Suarez is, like, slyly biting people. It's not good, man.
It's a very weird thing to do. Anthony EF, I can't say your name. We know this now. Has Newcastle, Lee Charnley, got the bottle to sack Bruce if the team struggles, or will they leave it too late like the McLaren season? Alex, what do you think on that one?
It's a great question from Anthony, and I'd probably say that history would repeat itself. I think that if Newcastle were cut adrift at some point, they might even want to keep Bruce for next season in the hope he brings us back up because he does have a decent record in terms of promotions. I know that's a very grim thought. You know, when they sacked McLaren, my understanding of it is that it's Rafa who approached them. So I think Nigel Pearson was the plan. That they were going to bring him in, and things would have turned out very differently indeed, would they not? So, yeah, I think that it'll be too late because it was so obvious under McLaren. It was so obvious there was an international break. We just lost 5-1 at Chelsea. It was the perfect time to sack a manager with winnable games coming up against Stoke and Bournemouth. And they didn't do it then. And, you know, I think the only reason McLaren got sacked is because the whole stadium turned against him. But that had happened to Pardew before. It's because the players basically turned against him as well. So I think Newcastle and Charnley's hand was forced in that situation, as Anthony asked. So I would be worried that a similar thing wouldn't happen. Hopefully, it'll not be an issue because we'll be flying high in 8th in March. Yeah.
Flying high. Mickey, do you want to add some pessimism to that? The happiness?
Well, I'm quite good for pessimism this season. I don't think Lee Charnley makes that call.
Okay. Yeah, but you might have to deliver the message.
There was also an interesting question a bit further up about whether Lee Charnley was capable of multitasking, and I don't think he even tasks at Newcastle United. I reckon he just turns in and, like, you know, when you see that. Have you ever seen that clip of the? It's a policeman and he's typing and he's on the news. He's typing, but he's not actually pressing the keys on his keyboard. That's what Charnley does at work. He pretends to type because he doesn't have anything to do. That's Lee Charnley's role at Newcastle United.
Imagine, and I bet he's paid handsomely for it as well.
The least handsomely of anyone in his position in the league.
Okay, but still. He's gainfully employed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find that one. I did see it, but I've lost it now, so I apologise.
I found a good one.
Oh, all right.
Just
I don't remember you being the host, but okay.
Okay. So what game did the panel miss that they wish they'd attended any era? Over to you guys, as I'm now the host.
No,
I've got the best one, definitely. The Barcelona win at home. The week before I broke my arm and my parents wouldn't let us go with a cast on.
Why? Because they were fighting.
It was my dad. I still give him grief about it now. Every time I see him, well, that's an exaggeration, but quite a couple of times a year, I get annoyed with him because he wouldn't let me go to that Barcelona game because I broke my elbow right on the corner there. So I had a big cast like all the way down my arm. I fell over the top of the stairs playing gladiators.
Very good.
I was only like 10 or something.
Yeah.
But what a game to miss! Like the best game of Newcastle United's last 30 years.
That's a really good one. That's a really good one. I think personally, I've never gone to any of our European games. I mean, I hear the stories from like you lot and you know your trips abroad, and it just I would love to do that. I would love to do that, and not like I know I've had the opportunity. I didn't take the opportunity to do some preseason stuff a couple of seasons ago, but yeah, I'd love it.
Not the same.
No, exactly. To be in a competition in Europe, like hearing the stories from everybody else is just like just anything. Benfica, I'll take anything. I would have loved it.
Really quickly from me, I was going to say Feyenoord, but you've kind of covered that one because that's a rare occasion of Newcastle United needing to win a big game and winning away from home. But I would quite like to have been at the game. What was it, like 1930? The record. It was. This is only in my head because I think yesterday was the anniversary and it was in the Chronicle. So it was like Newcastle v Chelsea, and there was like 70,000 there and thousands more locked out. Just would have been class. Just like the whole of Newcastle, particularly since populations were smaller at the time. Would have been meant to be there. I'd be dead now probably if I was there. So, you know.
Yeah, you would probably. But my granddad like. What?
Probably not. You probably wouldn't be dead. I doubt the majority of those 70,000 people. I've totally missed the question. Ignore me.
But it was in 1930, so unless he was like 1 and doesn't remember it.
Yeah, you'd have to be seriously old. Yeah, never mind.
My granddad's 100 next year. He maybe would have been there. I know that he wasn't, but he's still alive. Is the point I'm making. Okay. You know what? This is our last question. James Armstrong, if we swapped out Joe Linton for an Alan Shearer in his prime, where would we finish in the league? Miggy?
Seventh. He'd score 25 goals, wouldn't he? Like, genuinely, he was unstoppable in his proper prime. In the first season he signed for us and his last season for Blackburn, he could score anything from anywhere.
Yeah. Like, if we're talking prime, yeah, there'd be, loads of goals. Be meant.
You'd think he would have an issue with the way the manager sets up the team. He would be like, I'm not ambling around the halfway line for an hour, then getting subbed for like Muto.
Yeah, I think Shearer in his prime, like Mickey said before, would just be like, oh, okay, and then just do his own thing and be really aggressive on the pitch and score loads anyway. So
yeah.
Okay, we've hit an hour. That's our time limit. That's it. We're not going to keep you any longer. But we've really enjoyed this. I think we've got through most of the questions. And it's so nice of the people who have been watching. If you've watched the whole thing, thank you so much. If you've watched part, thanks so much. We're very grateful. This is our first foray into this sort of thing. The audio will be going up for our patrons on that platform. So if you're not a patron, do have a look at that. We have loads of great stuff on there. And that's us, I think, for this evening. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, wear your mask, and we will be back. Thanks so much.